Hey guys, it's Paul. So today I wanted to talk about costs in Yu-Gi-Oh! And pose the question, do they even matter anymore? So, first of all, let's start with like what a cost is, or I guess it's supposed to be. So, with cards, you sometimes have to pay a cost to activate them. That could be paying a certain amount of life points. That could be discarding a card. That could be, having to maybe send something from the field to the graveyard or whatever type of thing like that. There's supposed to be something that's sort of detrimental. It is called a cost after all. You have to pay the cost. Clue Fort Scout, you have to pay 800 life points. Solemn Judgment, you have to pay half your life points. Twin Twisters or similar cards, you have to discard a card as the cost. And so the idea is that, paying a cost is supposed to be a bad thing. But I do think that in recent years in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's all kind of changed a bit, where many cards still have costs attached to them, but it feels like Konami sometimes just designs these cards or entire archetypes in such a way where the costs mean very little or might even actually be beneficial for you. So, for instance, if you take an archetype like, let's say, Burning Abyss. The Burning Abyss deck's been around for many years, and when the Burning Abyss monsters go to the graveyard, they get different effects. Graph summons from deck, Seer summons from grave, these sorts of things. And so, a very popular way of playing Burning Abyss has been to use trap cards like Karma Cut, Raigeki Break, Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. These traps that have discard costs attached to them, but provide really powerful, damaging things in return, like Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, putting something on top of the deck, sets your opponent back a turn and gets a card off the field. So cards like that are supposed to kind of be like a -1 in card economy. That's to say you lose the trap, you lose a card from your hand, your opponent only loses one card, so it's a -1 for you. Paid for in a sense by the fact that it's a trap, so it's chainable and kind of spell speed too. But when you add a Burning Abyss component onto it, you're actually benefiting from those monsters going to the graveyard. So that's like one example, and it kind of only escalates from there because in a lot of cases, just going to the grave and maybe getting one effect is nice. There's been plenty of examples of monsters that can maybe come back from the grave, like a Mizuki. Discarding a Mizuki wouldn't be bad. There's others that literally activate effects that like will now search you something or summon something straight from your deck and actually enable you to make a combo. And so it's at times like that where I feel that the costs associated are really non-existent and are actually just promoting a combo. Now, am I saying that this is a bad thing? Well, no, not exactly. I mean, it certainly makes Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit more fun when you are you feel like you're making something new. Like taking a card that's supposed to be hard to use and making it work for you. There's some creativity there that I think could be applauded. On the other hand, though, it does feel like Konami has realized this and had to get a little bit more heavy-handed with costs for certain cards. Like, let's take the pot cards, for instance. Pot of Extravagance. Well, it started with Pot of Desires, where you banish 10 cards face down. And it's moved on to Pot of Extravagance and Prosperity, where you're having to banish these cards so that you can draw your 2 cards. And there's always like a joke about like, what Yu-Gi-Oh! Players will do just to get to draw 2 cards. But like, it seems like that's kind of the only way for these sorts of cards to feel balanced at all. It's like to force players to heavily banish things from their deck in a place where they can't get them back. Because even just banishing cards alone isn't enough of a cost. There are plenty of ways to recover banished cards, and there are plenty of cards that get effects when banished. There's like the archetype like Metaphys. There's things like Thunder Dragons. There's like the Nemesis monsters, for instance. All kinds of things that just have effects that happen when they get banished. So just banishing a card from your hand or something alone is not enough of a cost. With like Left Arm Offering, for instance, that was like one of those cards where like, oh, you banish everything in your hand and you get to search. Popularly played with that grass looks greener when that was a thing. But like people realized, okay, I could banish cards that just get effects when they're banished and then like it's all fine. So Konami's had to think of this whole banish face down thing. I don't have a problem with banishing face down. I actually like that really, really heavy weight that's placed on it because those cards are nearly impossible to recover outside of like Cyframe Omega, Necroface, a couple other examples. So that's cool. but it just does lead me to wonder what are costs really anymore? If we go back a bit to the life point one, obviously paying 800 virtually doesn't matter. Cosmic Cyclone costs 1,000 life points, rarely matters much. It seems to me as though when it comes to the life point situation, an old adage I used to always hear in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like, the only life point that matters is your last one. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Gives you 8,000 life points, but if you have like 500 life points and I have 8,000 life points, but you've got, 4 negates on the field and they're huge boss monsters and I have no cards in hand or on my field, we know who's winning here. And so it sometimes feels like it's worth paying the half of your life points to negate with Solemn Judgment. It's worth paying, the 800 to search with Cleafort Scout or whatever other card. It's worth the price of Brain Control, for instance, in the past, paying 800. I guess once you get to a certain amount of life points, not necessarily one, but just a certain low amount, then you have to start considering life points more. But that's never really stopped a lot of those cards from being played. In fact, I'd say the most infamous example, and a card that I personally hate right now, is Imperial Order. Having to pay 700 life points during each standby phase, I guess that sounds like a steep cost, but as we know in Yu-Gi-Oh!, shutting down spells, you only really need like 1, maybe 2 turns of that effect lingering on your opponent, and you'll have won the game anyway. So it definitely seems like, life points as a cost don't matter a whole lot, but they can. Discards as a cost, virtually, I don't even think that those really count. Banishing face down seems like that's probably the only effective one. There's one other that I think is like really funny. Cards like Magician's Souls, where like it sends something from your deck as a cost. Like, Magician's Soul sends a Dark Magician or a Dark Magician Girl, or I guess a level 6 or higher spellcaster to like use its effect and then gets to like summon itself and all that. It's like, is that even a cost? It's literally just designed to work your strategy. So another one of those is like GX Undine back in like the Mermail kind of Atlantean deck, when that was like a thing you normal summon. And it's like send a water monster from your deck to your grave to add GX Controller, but like sending a water monster literally triggered Atlantean. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is costs are a little bit weird in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes I think that maybe they need to be revisited and things need to have more of a cost to them. I feel that maybe we should start moving the costs more onto the boss monsters themselves and less of the starter cards. So, imagine if a card like invoked Mechaba, right? Like it takes a discard to do the negation. What if more bosses were like that? More of those like cards involved like discards, making you banish something, making you pay a heavy price to get the negates. Maybe that would balance the negation problem. I don't know. And there's still other, attachments to cards, like locking certain cards that lock you into a certain type or an archetype for the rest of the turn, or the hard once per turn thing. That's stuff that's probably best saved for another video. Let me know if you'd like to see that. I can certainly talk a little bit more about those. But yeah, what do you guys think of costs in Yu-Gi-Oh? Where they've come from, where they stand right now? Do you have any issues with it? Do you think it's all just kind of fine? Again, I'm not saying it's like a problem, like I hate that it's this way. It's just kind of an observation. So yeah, I'd like to hear from you guys down in the comments. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.